Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy,
And I'm Diva.
and this is Twisted Listers, a podcast about murder.
And lists.
And this is part two. I forgot to put part one on the headline because I was did my own for a week, so I didn't have part one and part two. So I'm going to edit the title of the first one, but this is part two of people murdered on the 4th of July, which is a very timely...
Died on the 4th of July.
Died on the 4th of July, yes. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting topic, wide range of options for cases. And yeah, you guys just put out a Patreon yesterday. So if anybody wants to be a patron, you can do that, patreon.com/twisted listers. We admittedly don't post that much, but we're independent creators. We do 2 podcasts a week free for everyone. So if you want to support us, it's really lovely. There's $1 a month where you just get the extra content, and then $5 a month you get the extra content, and then you get our podcasts without ads.
So. I mean, this year we've done almost one a month. We've done like a handful this year already. So it's not so bad.
It's not. And honestly, it's just about, supporting independent artists. So if you guys are able to do it, we appreciate it. If you're not, we appreciate you anyway. Just listening and sharing, liking, rating, reviewing. If you'd like to join us on Instagram, you can do that at
Twisted Listers PCast.
If you'd like to send us an email with case suggestions or just to say hi, you can do that at
twistedlisterspod@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to visit our website and buy some stickers or just check out what we're up to, you can do that at
twistedlisterspod.com.
Okay, so now I'm going to get into the case. I'm going first.
Yes.
And this one is pretty fucked up.
Okay.
So I'm going to do the case of Stacey Lannert. And I'm just going to jump right in. Stacey was born May 28th, 1972 in St. Louis, Missouri. She lived with both of her parents and eventually a younger sister who was 2 years younger than herself. This sister was named Christy. So we have Stacey and Christy. The family was fairly normal. Most of her young life, things seemed okay. And then at some point, when she was still pretty young, her dad started to drink. And it's not super clear why. At first it was okay, but then his drinking started to get worse. And she and her dad were always close growing up. Or when she was growing up, obviously. But as he started to drink, this closeness very unfortunately became a gateway for abuse. And I should have given a trigger warning for child sexual abuse. So if that is not your thing, skip forward to Divas. So this, the first time Stacey's father, Tom, abused her, she was only 8 years old. The family had a basement, and he asked her to come into the basement with him, leaving her mother and sister upstairs. I know. And of course she did this because it's her dad. Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, who would expect this, right?
Yeah, of course.
Unfortunately, though, he had been drinking, and when they were alone, he began touching her. This was super inappropriate, obviously, but at first, Stacey didn't realize this because she's 8 and she doesn't understand this stuff. And so she thought it was normal and okay. And it took a while for her to realize differently. And I think it was a combination of her dad warning her not to tell anyone else, her just kind of growing up in the world and realizing it, and also he started to hurt her. And even after, she learned it wasn't okay and that she didn't like it, she was scared and didn't tell anyone. And maybe
of course.
Yeah, and more than being scared, you want your parents to love you. You want your parents to accept you. And she wanted to make him happy. So I think there was a lot of conflict in her 8-year-old mind.
No, it's super confusing.
Yeah, and she said, when he would hurt her, he was like a different person. I listened to an interview with her, and she said that, he had these really blue eyes, and when he was like her dad, he was smiley and happy, and then when he was Tom, the man who would abuse her, it's like his eyes changed. And so,
It's so scary.
Yeah, but in a way, I think she was compartmentalizing her father as well as the abuse.
True. But that can happen with like attackers and serial killers too. I think with Ted Bundy, people said that his eyes went black.
Yeah, Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
something happened. I'm like, are your pupils
Yeah.
dilating? Is it like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? Big trigger warning here. When she was 9 years old, he began full on raping her, which is
Ugh.
horrifying. And this went on for years and years and years. Pretty quickly after the abuse started, her parents got divorced, and she and her sister at first both went to live with her mom, with her dad getting them, part time on weekends, I think. The abuse did continue during this time. And she said that it definitely would range from like multiple times a week to a few weeks at a time where nothing would happen. So it was really, really random. But eventually, when Stacey was around 12 years old, her mother sent her to live with her father full time. And the reason for this was that Stacey was acting out a lot and was a handful of a child, as she put it, which, I mean, fair. I
Yeah,
feel like she's got a lot to be acting out about. Now,
for
Stacey's
sure.
sister, who, as far as she knew at the time, was not being sexually abused, would actually get really upset with Stacey because she was jealous of what she thought was favoritism with Stacey's father. And Stacey's father was physically abusive to both sisters, which made the jealousy Christy felt even more intense. Because, when your parents physically abuse you, it makes you feel inadequate. It makes you feel,
Yeah.
like you suck and like you're not worth anything.
Like it's your fault. Yeah.
Yeah. So she wanted this approval and parental love that she thought Stacey was getting because she didn't know. So at one point during this time, because both parents worked and because they were split up, Stacey and Christy had a babysitter. And this babysitter sort of started to catch on to what was going on. Like she could just tell and asked Stacey. And Stacey told her, like, yeah, you know, this is what's happening. So this
Yeah.
babysitter went to Stacey's mom and told her that Tom was, quote, hurting Stacey, but her mother, Deb, did nothing. So late, and then the worst part is the babysitter, whose boyfriend at the time was a cop, just dropped it, like, did not pursue it. She was like, I told the
Oh
parents,
my
I did my
God.
job,
No.
right?
Yeah.
So, sorry. So, some things about Deb, her mother. Uh, Stacey later on said that she thought her mom was just in denial. Her mom later said, the babysitter told me that Tom was hurting her. So I figured that just meant spanking. So she used that as
Mm,
like an excuse to ignore it,
gotcha.
and kind of lie about to herself about what was happening so she didn't have to deal with it. And I think one of the most important things here to note is that Deb, Stacey's mother, grew up with a sexually abusive father. So this is kind of like
Okay.
the
She's already
cycle of
normalizing it a little
abuse.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so she was abused by her father. She marries a man who has these tendencies, which is not by accident. And I'm not saying she did it on purpose. I'm saying that because of the way she was raised, she is somehow drawn to people like this because
Hmm.
that's what's normal for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then when it starts happening to her daughters, she finds a way to rationalize it, explain it away, not deal with it.
Yeah.
Um, which is a big, big fucking problem. So as Stacey gets older, the abuse continues. And again, we don't know what happened with, her sister, but Stacey was basically like, I'm gonna turn 18 soon. I can get away from him. I don't have to deal with this anymore. So when she's 18, she actually moved with her mother to Guam. I guess her mom lived
Oh,
out in Guam.
okay.
Yeah. And she lived there for about 6 months, and her sister Christy begged her to to return because Christy was only 16 and was still living with her father. And while he wasn't, as far as we know at that point, sexually abusive to Christy, he was not a good person. He was not a good man. He drank a lot. He hit her. He sucked.
Yeah. He sucks either way,
Uh, yeah.
for
And
sure.
and Stacy had tried to convince him to let Christy come live with Deb and her in Guam, and he was like, absolutely not. And for
Yeah.
whatever reason, he had custody or could fight it. I think it was one of those things where they had joint custody, and because her mother decided to move far away, she was the one kind of giving up the ability to have Christy,
Yeah.
for her 50%. So eventually, Stacy comes back and moves back in with her dad. And I think she kind of did this to help out her sister, it seems like.
Mhm.
And with her, she brought a little dog. Um, don't worry.
Okay. I was like, I'm already
I'm just gonna
immediately
put that
like,
out there.
no.
Yeah.
Okay.
So her, she's living with her dad. Things are not going great. And at one point, it's the 4th of July, and her dog pees on the rug just right in front of her dad. And her dad is like freaking out, hits the dog. Nothing terrible. The dog's fine. But is basically like, your dog is fucking out of here. It cannot live here anymore. And she's like, fine, I will move out. I'm going to take the dog. I'm taking Christy with me. And he's like, the fuck you will. This turned into a huge fight that ended with him locking himself and Christy in a room and locking Stacey out. And Stacey said she remembered like sobbing and like beating on the door and trying to get in, going outside of the house to get in through a window, doing anything she could because she didn't know what he was doing to Christy.
Oh,
And
God.
and in this interview, she didn't say like, yes, he, raped her. It was implied that she thought that was probably what happened. And she said that when Christy came out, they both just pretended nothing happened and they didn't talk about it. And they left the house. So she leaves her dog there and she and Christy go out for the night on the 4th of July and they decide like, fuck this. We're going to go get a hotel. So she gets a hotel and she's like, we're never coming back. And then she's like, I have to go get my shit. I have to go get my dog. Like,
Yeah.
I need to go get my things. So she sneaks into the house around 4:15 a.m. She goes in through a basement window. There's a rifle in the basement and she just sees it and she decides in that moment, like, fuck this, I'm going to kill this motherfucker.
Yeah.
And she goes upstairs and she takes the rifle and she shoots him. And she shoots him in the collarbone and this wakes him up. And he starts tearing around the house, like jumps up startled and is like, what the fuck? Oh my God. And like basically first starts asking her like, call 911, something happened. And then as he like wakes up and realizes that she shot him, he's basically like, you're fucked. Like, starts raging on her. So she raises the rifle and shoots him again. And he falls down dead. So she grabs her dog and she fucking bails out and she's just like, holy shit, like, what did I just do? But she's also, I think, happy in a way to have done it because she's saving her sister, and also like, fuck this guy, right? A little bit, at least.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot, yeah. So she calls a friend who helps her to dispose of the murder weapon and concoct like a lie to tell the police. So she, quote unquote, comes home the next day and finds her dad and calls the police and tells them what happened. And the police don't believe her immediately. Like, she does not have a poker face. She's showing her hand right up front. And they do a little bit of pushing and they're like, this is your last chance to like tell us the truth. And she does. And she tells this detective, I think he's a sergeant. She tells him everything. And she just breaks down. And this is Detective Schulte or Schulte, depends on how German they want to be about it. But she tells him everything, and he tells her like, "I believe you. I believe you." Oh, he was a Lieutenant Tom Schulte.
Okay,
and he believes her, but she was still charged with first-degree murder and a few other, felonies. And she goes to trial. Her sister was also charged with like conspiracy, I think, and like covering up a murder, and she went to prison. Her sister did 2 years for this.
Okay.
But Stacey, she tries a few different things like defensive insanity, then they try battered spouse syndrome. They definitely tried to do like self-defense, but in this state, in Missouri, you can't claim self-defense if you're not imminently in danger.
Yeah.
So
he didn't have a gun to her, so like
he wasn't sexually abusing her or attacking her in that moment.
Right.
So she couldn't use that.
Yeah.
So they try all of this different stuff, and she gets convicted anyway. And the judge suggested that she get life with the possibility of parole, and she was instead sentenced to with no possibility of parole.
What?
And yeah, so at 18, 19 years old at this point, in 1990, after killing her father on the 4th of July, technically, I guess the 5th, but maybe it was the 4th. Anyway, she's given life without parole.
That's insane. I'm sorry. If you kill your abuser, you should get like a little plaque. You should get a medal. You should get a parade. You should get a hat, maybe. This is insane.
Yeah. The judge and I forgot what it was. The judge said, if it were up to me, I would give you life with the possibility of parole. But because you were convicted of first degree murder in this state and like with these, special factors, your sentence basically has to be without parole.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. So the jury, and this was up to the jury, like they found her guilty despite, witnesses, expert witnesses, people coming forward and saying she definitely was abused,
Yeah.
So Christy, her sister, did 2.5 years. And Stacey attempted to fight this for a number of years. She exhausted all of her appeals. At one point, people were ruling in her favor, but then the Court of Appeals, the Eighth Circuit, I believe, ruled in favor of the original judge. They said as much as they didn't want to, they had to because they were bound by law. So at one point she was almost given like, okay, we're going to reduce your sentence. We're going to this, that, and the other. And then they were like, we're bound by law as it's, interpreted by us at the court. While we don't necessarily think the punishment fits the crime, our hands are tied essentially, which is fucking bullshit because judges do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. The court did not find what they were arguing was a man who raped his daughter when she was in the 3rd grade made him the initial aggressor. They were like, we don't actually find that to be true. It's like, really?
Sure.
Like, you don't?
Okay.
What the fuck is wrong with you that you don't find that to be true? So anyway, she then tried to get commutation of her sentence. She tried to get pardoned by various governors. She gained support for clemency from the first governor that she spoke to. I forget his name. He died unexpectedly in a plane crash before he was able to give her the clemency that he had basically promised her.
That's random.
So it's like, it's random. And can you imagine being like, oh my God, I'm going to get clemency. I'm going to get out of here. All this guy has to do is sign
just rides on this one guy
before it's like cinematic almost. Yeah. And like how crazy that is.
Wow.
The next governor came forward and was like, I will consider granting you clemency, but you need to do more like, sort of like, what's it called? Like, you need to get the word out. There's a lot of strong voices in Missouri against your release. You need to start getting support. You need to start. What is it the politicians do to like gain
lobbying?
Votes? Lobbying. Thank you. I couldn't think of it. Like, you need to start lobbying or like, going out into the world. So she got interviewed on Oprah. She started getting out like, I forget, it was like, it wasn't Vogue, but it was like Vanity Fair or something did an article on her, and it shot this case into like, it became like a huge cause for people. And then this governor fucking ignored her. Pardon me. So she sat through 2 governors. One died. The other just fucking ignored her. Finally, she sought commutation from Matt Blunt, who was the governor at the time in 2005 to 2009. And in 2009, as he was going out, because that's what governors do, like when they're on their way out, or presidents, that's when they grant all of these, pardons and whatever.
Yeah.
And on his way out, he finally granted her clemency and changed her sentence from life with no parole to life with parole after 20 years.
Okay.
Now, at this point, she had already served 18 and was immediately eligible for release. And within like days, she was released.
Yeah, the parole was like, boop, 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 okay, fucking awesome.
Yeah, they're like, you're fucking out of here. Every single one of us has wanted to let you out of here.
Yeah, and she's already served more than enough time.
More than enough time. And she was a model prisoner. She did the scared straight thing for girls, but she said it wasn't like scared straight. Like they weren't trying to terrify them. They were just trying to like talk to them. And when she came out, she started like a nonprofit for other survivors of domestic abuse and rape and, child abuse. And she doesn't call them survivors. She calls them victors because they were victorious in their lives over what happened to them. Yeah, it's a very lovely thought. And actually a huge part of why she was released was the unending, like, super hard work of her public defender. Yeah. So she actually went to law school, was for whatever reason, because she was like, I'm a convicted felon, like I'm not going to be able to sit for the bar. She was granted the ability to sit for the bar. They were like, you can't, we're going to let you become a lawyer.
That's rad.
She became a lawyer and is now like a working public defender.
Oh, nice. What a good use of that, like, experience.
Yeah. Yeah, so she was released before she was 40 after thinking she was going to spend her entire life in prison, and basically came out and just was like, I'm going to do a lot of good for the world. Like,
That's
watch me
awesome.
fucking be amazing.
I met someone
Yeah.
recently who's a public
So
defender, and I was like, "You're rad," and we had a good talk, and we shit talked on prosecutors. So yeah,
yes, that's the thing to do.
yeah.
If anybody wants to get really angry, the second season of Serial actually like um kind of shows a day in the life for various people in a court system. And it
Mm,
wasn't as good as Serial season 1, obviously, but it
right.
has a lot of good parts to it. It will infuriate you just having to sit through and understand what these people go through when they're going through the court system and how it has absolutely nothing to do with justice.
Yeah.
So shout out to that. I'll also link to the podcast that did this interview with Stacey, but essentially that's the story. She,
Oh,
killed her father in what I consider to be self-defense, and was very luckily granted clemency from an outgoing governor in fucking Missouri of all places.
ooh,
Um,
yeah. I'm sure there's
yeah,
stories like hers where people have still not gotten out. It's really shitty
yes,
that this ever
I
happens.
didn't. I'm glad that this one that happened to occur on the date we're talking about ended with me not wanting to tear all of my hair out.
Yeah,
That's why I
it's
wanted to
really,
tell the tale.
really fucked up.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and women who kill their rapists and all these things, it's like it's not premeditated. Also, like you've had like so much emotion, and it's also the definition of like second degree to me too, because you're like, I've all this
Yes.
emotion informing it. It's not like ever really that
Yes.
calculating.
100% agree.
Yeah.
100% agree. Yeah, pisses me off.
Okay.
But at least this one, she got out, and everybody basically was like, we want you to get out. And then the governor finally got his shit together and was like, okay,
Yeah, and
I'll
it
let
helps
you
that
out.
there's ample evidence that this dad was a piece of shit. Like it's very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the court even was like, oh, your babysitter and your mother fucking failed you.
Yeah.
You still get no parole. Like, what the
It's
fuck?
fucked.
So
Yeah.
I know. Anyway, glad it worked out the way it did. Yeah.
All
There
right.
it is.
So my story has a lot of 4th of July-ness to it, woven throughout it. It's the murder of Megan Barroso. This happened in Moore Park, California in 2001. If you don't know where Moore Park is, it's a suburb of like Simi Valley, essentially, which is a very beige, dry place kind of north
Wait,
of
see
LA.
me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we play baseball out there. It's hot as fuck.
It's very beige. It's very dry, very hot. Yeah.
We call it Slimy Valley because we're mean.
Yeah, yeah.
I do. Not like the baseball team or anything. Me,
I always
my
think
family.
about Salem, my cat, when I think about Simi Valley because we adopted her from there. So it's really cute.
Right. Well, whatever. Fine.
Simi Valley. So a bit about Megan here. I don't have a ton, but she was 20. She attended Moore Park College, and she had just gotten out on her own to get her own apartment. And so she was just sort of like enjoying being 20, living her life, being independent. She was also really passionate about Irish dance, like the little river dance things where you stand in the line, And she was former member of the Santa Rosette Cloggers, which I guess is one branch of that, but she had been hoofing with these funny shoes for some time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cute.
I love it. It's cute. It's really cute.
Yeah. I also hate to like comment on people's looks, but like she was really gorgeous, like in a startling way where you're like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard, and then I feel bad when we like don't comment on somebody, but like occasionally that type of shit makes a difference to the case too.
I'm just
like
painting a picture.
Like
I'm painting a picture.
Yeah.
She clogs, she parties, but for some reason she's also really pretty. Anyway, so the night of July 4th, here we're going to start with like a little bit of a mystery and then work backwards. A driver notices a car riddled with 5 bullet holes to the driver's side windshield. It's kind of haphazardly pulled over to the median, to the middle of the road strip of grass, and it's still running. So that's an alarming find.
Yeah, that's a fucking scene.
The driver obviously calls 911, reports it, and when investigators and folks get there, they find this really weird scene, including one woman's sandal kind of tossed by the driver's side, and they also find blood all over on the inside of the the inside of like the driver's seat, including the gear shift and the steering wheel, and in the front 2 seats. They also find a purse in the car with blood on it, and a phone and a wallet. Interestingly, with no driver's license in the wallet.
Okay.
Yeah. So nearby, investigators also find a gun cleaning rod that's typically used for a rifle, and some shell casings.
Okay.
So they're able to figure out that this was a rental car that was rented by Megan Barroso. She had rented it for like a few days or for the week because her regular car was getting repaired in the shop. Detectives call Lindsay, one of Megan's like BFFs, and kind of are slowly piecing together, begin to piece together what Megan's 4th of July looked like. So she said that that day, Lindsay and Megan were at Lindsay's parents' house for a barbecue, and they all left because they had plans to hang out with another group of friends at a small get-together at the nearby Silver Strand Beach, which is kind of by Oxnard. I'll have to reference Californian places.
Yes.
For those in the know. So a friend of theirs at the beach named John was reportedly a bit drunk and started hitting on Megan. So that was one thing that Lindsay kind of noted. But they still had a great time. They watched fireworks on the beach with various girlfriends of theirs. And then the party moved to John's house. At some point in the party at the house, Lindsay said she playfully, they're drinking, it's 4th of July. She playfully took a canister of red glitter and shook it all over Megan.
Why?
Because it's 4th of July and they're goofy 20-year-olds and they're drunk.
Okay, so they were having fun. It wasn't like mean.
No. She was just like, I'm glittering you. And Megan was like, no, and like it's playful glitter. It's not a glitter assault. It's a playful glitter. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So, but you know how glitter is. It stays with you.
Forever and ever and ever.
Forever. Yes. So we'll circle back to that. Around 2 a.m., the party wraps up. Around 2 a.m., the party wraps up, and I'm just looking at this like, oh my God, I am the sleepiest lady right now. I could never make it till 2 a.m. for anything ever again.
Yeah.
But I did at one point in life. Around 2 a.m., the party wraps up, and someone gives the two girls a ride back to Lindsay's house. And Lindsay tries to insist, like, hey, you can crash at my place. It's classic, like, moment that, of course, Lindsay will never forget. And Megan says, no, I'm going to drive home. It's like closer to 3 a.m. at this point. And Lindsay's like, come on, like, just crash here. And it's this, sad final moment. So that's it. She kind of disappears from there, and that's the last that Lindsay saw her. But they have a whole narrative of her night. She was supposedly just driving home. And a massive search ensues for Megan in the area, any trace of her, but they find nothing. There's no leads at first. They obviously bring the party goers in for interviews, including John, this guy who was hitting on her. And he kind of admits to hitting on her. He's like, yeah. But he's found to have an airtight alibi, so he could not have killed her. Because every step is accounted for.
Like, hitting on somebody doesn't necessarily, like, I mean, I get it why they would be like looking into him, but also like, I don't know.
That
like,
can be a red flag because if you know how, incel men are when you reject their advances.
Yes.
That can be a thing, but in this case, fortunately, it was not. He just hit on her.
I'm glad he didn't lie about it, know?
So 2 weeks after Megan's disappearance, detectives announced that they've matched both the shell casings and the cleaning rod found at the scene to a very specific kind of AK-47 type assault rifle.
Oh, shit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, what a choice of a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they first said rifle, I was picturing like a hunting kind of rifle. I'm like, oh no, an assault rifle, like a mass shooting type of rifle.
Fucking assault rifle. Jesus.
So detectives also put this together, this crime with the fact that in the 5 or so years prior, up until this point, an unknown assailant had been raping teen girls and young women in the Moore Park and Simi Valley areas.
Ooh, God, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So in like the late 90s, early 2000s. And these attacks had escalated and grown increasingly physically violent. So there's like a real like chart of like how severe they're getting. And they were like, okay, there's obviously could be a connection here. And
it's escalating. So
20 days after Megan's disappearance, a man named Vincent Sanchez is arrested for a burglary. He then calls his roommate. This is wild. He then calls his roommate and says, hey, could you take this bag of stuff from my room and throw it in the dumpster? It's not at all suspicious.
Oh, yeah.
And the roommate, who really could have just done that, takes a hot minute, pokes around inside, and finds some videotapes, and he instinctively just pops one in the old, VCR, and it shows Sanchez raping a woman.
No.
Yep.
Oh my God.
This is the
So
guy.
his roommate probably knew. He's like, this is a slimy motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever's in
Yes.
this bag is probably bad news.
Yeah, they actually didn't like love Vincent. Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's fair. God
yeah,
damn.
yeah. So they're like, oh my God. And then so the police put it together. Thankfully, they tell police and they put it together that Sanchez is the Simi Valley rapist and he's been filming these attacks as well.
Wow, dude.
On like tape, on like big fat tapes.
That's so much worse because like sometimes when women are attacked, and listen, I'm not like a million. It's fucking horrible. But I always think about the difference between somebody who's like attacked where like raped where they are attacked
Mm-hmm.
and then somebody who's like kidnapped and taken somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like so horrifying because
Yeah.
it's so much more like you're probably going to be murdered
Oh, yeah,
than
for
like
sure.
somebody just doing it kind of in the moment. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's
Yeah.
so much more planned and like
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I just had to
Although if you're
like
Ted Bundy, you do
yuck.
both. And
Yeah,
you
true.
kill them either way.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, a
So
million's a million, but
yeah.
like, you know.
So the roommates confirm, they talk to the roommates extensively, and the roommates confirm that Vincent Sanchez had actually stolen one of their guns from their gun collection, which was an assault rifle.
Ooh, okay, there it is.
Mm-hmm. And they actually like kind of roughed him up and put pressure on him, saying, "Give it back, my fucking gun! Like you stole it." And so he does. But because of that, because he gave it back, they're like, "Hey, check it out, detectives!" And they're able to check it out, and they find that it's the gun they thought it was, and the cleaning rod is missing.
Mm-hmm.
And the ammo is an exact match. That's exactly the one that they, like I said, that did this shot into Megan's car. So while they search Vincent's apartments, smushed between the dumpsters and the parking lot, detectives find a green bomber jacket exactly matching the one Megan was last seen wearing, according to her friends and Lindsay. And it's bloody and it has bullet holes in it. So here we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, the house is like a crime scene, the apartment, and they seize a bunch of shit to run tests on it.
Right.
Including his car and the apartment, everything. So among the forensic evidence that they find are specks of 4th of July fucking red glitter on both her jacket and the assault rifle. Well, the glitter is insane in this case. The glitter is insane. Yeah. They also, while spritzing his truck with luminol, it's like they did the classic line I love from detective shows. It lit up like a Christmas tree, right? Because it was like all covered in blood, the whole truck, particularly in the passenger seat and the bed of the truck.
God, dude.
Yeah. And along with the blood, they find even more red glitter all over the truck. It's also found in the driveway at his home. And Lindsay tells detectives, of course, at some point about because they ask her, like, hey, what's up with the fucking glitter? And then he's just like, oh, yeah, I did, put glitter on her.
Yeah.
And she even goes back to the house where she was partying, finds the container and gives it to them and they can match it up. Forensic glitter testing. Yeah.
Oh, God, I'm so glad.
So it's
That's
like
fucking crazy.
The weirdest like evidence I've ever heard, but glitter's going to fucking get on everything. So it's so sticky, So detectives put together the theory of what happened to Megan as she drove home that night after 4th of July festivities concluded. And I got to tell you, this is one of the like mouth to the floor, mouth dropping like narratives of a murder abduction that I've ever heard. Like this is literally the stuff of actual hell nightmares. She was literally driving home alone, minding her own fucking business. And he was just driving near her on the freeway and just passed her and just decided he was going to attack her. He tried to run her off the road.
Oh my God.
And then grabbed his assault rifle and shot into her car as she was driving.
Oh my God.
Like, what can you do about that, So she crashes into the median. He then gets out, pulls her out of the car. She had definitely been shot and was bleeding, but was not dead.
Okay.
He put her in the passenger seat. She bleeds everywhere. At some point, her or her body was in the trunk or the bed of the truck at some point.
Okay.
At some point, they believe he sexually assaulted her as she's bleeding out, dying. And Yeah, detectives try and put more heat on
Wow.
Vincent to find out where her body is, but he's not admitting to anything. But the searches continue, and about a month after her, abduction, one
Mhm.
search where I believe her mom was in attendance, heartbreakingly.
Oh,
The
no.
search goes to the area of Black Canyon, which is a rocky ravine about 15 miles east of where her car was found,
Mhm.
outside of Simi Valley. And cadaver dogs make a hit and ultimately find Megan's body with brush piled on top of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, her
Classic.
her
Classic, like, fucking lazy ass.
very lazy. Yeah,
Ugh.
and her pants were missing, which is, of course, more confirmation of what they thought, which is that a rape occurred. It's thought that Vincent may have kept these along with her license because he loved to keep souvenirs from the assaults
Mm. Okay.
and tapes and whatever, relive it, classic
Yeah,
serial
just
killer
be a
shit.
piece of shit.
And of
Yeah.
course, things were escalating,
Classic.
right? He was getting more physically violent, so now he escalated to murder.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah. So the coroner examines Megan's badly decomposed body. They aren't able to do a full examination, but they do find that
Mhm.
same red glitter that's all over, Vincent's shit and the gun
Him,
and the crime
well,
scene.
his
Yeah.
car, yeah, not him, I guess, but the car and all of his
Yeah.
shit, yeah.
Yeah. So Vincent Sanchez is charged with Megan's first-degree murder, in addition to 14 separate charges around the rape and other things. At trial, he faces the death penalty. He pleads
Mhm.
guilty to the sexual assaults. Oh, sorry. I meant to say 14 separate charges related to the other rapes, not Megan's rape. The whole other series that
Oh.
he did. Remember the whole?
Oh.
Yeah. The long series of serial rapes he was doing. So he faced charges to that, and weirdly, he would admit to those, but not to Megan's murder. I think. I
Wow.
think he just doesn't want like the death penalty, right?
Right.
So in 2003, we had the trial, and it's pretty high profile at the time. Did I say 2003? Yeah. Vincent Sanchez notably has no remorse. He's a very cold-faced dude. He's very chill
Mhm.
about all of this. And after a pretty short trial, I think it's like a week or something, Vincent is found guilty of the rapes and Megan's murder and gets the death penalty.
Oh,
Um,
shit.
However, this is California, so as we've talked about
Right.
multiple times, we know nothing's going to happen because of the various moratoriums placed on the death penalty. So he is just sitting in San Quentin with some pretty colorful roommates on death row.
Well, that's fine. San Quentin isn't
Yeah.
exactly, like, the best
No, he
prison you
gets to
can
hang
be
out
in.
with Charles Ng and, like those
Yeah,
guys.
he's not, I think on death row, it's like you're in your cell, like, 23 hours a day.
Yeah, but he is
So,
definitely worthy of
it's
that company, I think. He's a piece of shit.
yeah, he is.
And I just can't get over like someone just firing a gun into your car as you're driving and like pulling you out of the car. I'm like, that is so scary. Like,
It's fucking
Jesus
terrifying.
Christ. Like, there's nothing you can do about that. There's no not victim blaming, but there's no like self defense. Like, oh, if you did this or just like, there's nothing you can do if someone shoots into your car. There's nothing you can do.
There's literally nothing you can do. There's
No,
nothing at all. It's
it's
just like, it is
terrifying.
what it is, and that's it. Yeah, it fucking is really terrifying.
Ugh.
Jesus Christ, dude. Oh yeah. I mean,
Happy
there was
4th
that
of
one that I
July.
did
There we go.
recently. Yeah, I did another one recently. I forget what it was, but it was like the author's daughter. He like shot into her car and fucking killed her. Like, and it's just like, this is something that has happened. Like, people just randomly shooting into fucking cars, or not even like
Hate it.
randomly. It's like a targeted attack, but like literally while people are driving. It's fucking scary.
We should do
I
road
think people
rage
think they're,
murders too.
ooh, that's a good
This
one.
wasn't that
Um,
obviously, but there's a lot of really scary road rage murders.
yeah. And it's just weird. You kind of think you're safe in your car, but you're super not. So
No, that's why I tell my husband to not put people off in the car as much as he wants to. I tell him don't.
yeah,
I
I
don't
do
want to get
that.
murdered.
But
I'm sure you do.
I'm I do. And then they chase me home, and then I have Rory walk outside, and all these tough guys suddenly just like keep driving. I'm like, that's what I fucking
Mm.
thought. It's a fun one for me. But anyway. Um okay. Anyway, what are we doing next week?
Oh yeah, I wanted to keep with like the America kind of theme. So my idea is to do the most prolific serial killers of American history. So it's kind of like an Olympics, if you will, of gold medals of serial killing.
Okay.
Which maybe
I
sounds too
love it.
positive, but like, a negative award of just how
Okay.
terrible we can be. So
Um Okay. I like that. I already picked a case for it.
Oh, good. Nice.
Yes. That you actually said felt very 4th of July. So I was like, yes, it does.
Oh, yeah, good. I know which one.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, thanks guys for listening. Hope you liked these stories. Every single one of these was very different, which I sort of love when we pick a topic where we can do that. I feel like it gives it a wider range.
Nice variety
Please
pack.
do not. Yeah. Please be careful on the 4th of July. Fireworks suck if you live in the city because it scares animals, it scares veterans.
Crash at your friend's house. Don't drive home after you've been drinking. Crash at your friends.
Be safe, have fun, have a great time. And until the next list,
stay
off our
list.
Yeah.